Hi, my name's Jed Brophy. I play the Dagda Mor in the Shannara Chronicles. I'm talking to Chris Gordon on Ramblings of a Hellraiser.
Hi, this is Jed Brophy. I play the Dagda Mor in the Shannara Chronicles. I'm here talking to Chris Gordon on Ramblings of a Hellraiser.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night to all my listeners wherever you are in the world at this moment. You're listening to Chris Gordon and this is Ramblings of a Hellblazer. Wow, what can I say? Your support has been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. And today I welcome back a former guest who entertained talking about The Hobbit and his tales of filming. At the time, which was just before Christmas, his latest endeavour, the Shannara Chronicles, had not been released yet. So he did make a date to return to discuss, and which I am happy to say is today. So without any further ado, I am proud to introduce you and welcome back the Dagda Mor himself, Jed Brophy. Okay, so everybody, I am here once again and delighted to welcome back Mr. Jed Brophy from Shannara Chronicles, who we can now say is from Shannara Chronicles. He was on before Christmas talking about The Hobbit, so I do welcome him back and discuss the Dagda Mor. So good evening, Jed, how are you? Or good morning.
Good morning, yeah, it's a beautiful sunny day here in Ramity South again.
I really envy that. It is raining, it's hailing, and it's windy nights over here in Prestatyn in North Wales.
Sorry about that. Isn't that kind of like status quo?
Yeah, pretty much. You've been here a few times.
I have family actually from Wynn Castle.
All right, okay.
The old castle, yeah, that's where it's my Welsh family of the Wynns. I've just been reading a story about it, so one day I'll visit.
That'd be pretty cool.
1 or 2 days of summer.
Yeah. That's the running joke over here. Goes, yeah, summer was great. It was a lovely day, wasn't it?
Yeah. Mean.
All right, cool. So as you know, we've got loads of questions just fire away for yourself and talk about your role. There are a couple of Hobbit ones which I've put to the front, and then obviously we'll move on to Shannara, if that's all right with you.
Excellent. It is.
Brilliant. Okay, so these ones come from Roma Boy, who is at Roo Roovers, who I believe you are in.
I know, boy, yep.
You know him. So as an actor who's done many conventions, how has your fan interaction over the years been like with fans at conventions, and will you keep doing them if work allows?
Look, I love it. It's the one time that we get to actually connect in a real way with our fans, which isn't just, on the red carpet waving at people as we're getting escorted down. We actually get to have some real one-on-one time, and we get to catch up with our buddies as well. One of the great things about the Hobbit ones that we go to is there's usually about 4 or 5 of us from the Hobbit we get to go, and we're all so busy, it's quite often that we actually get to sit and have a beer with each other.
Yeah.
So as much as it's a great time to catch up with the fans and to sort of have a real interaction with them, it's also great for us to actually catch up with, especially Graham McTavish. He's the funnest guy to go to conventions with because he always has such brilliant stories. He's a very hard-working man.
He is, yeah. He seems to be a very, very busy man. But I missed him at the last. He was meant to come in November, wasn't he, to Wales Comic Con, but he couldn't make it because of Outlander, I think.
He just keeps getting jobs. Poor bugger.
I know, yeah. Yeah, who'd go and work for a living, yeah?
I don't know. So some of us do.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, how did you become aware of the Shannara Chronicles? And this is again from Roma Boy. How did you become aware of the Shannara? Did you pursue the role, or did they ask you to come to audition for it?
I didn't pursue the role. Actually, they pursued me. They were looking for someone who was experienced in doing prosthetics and who'd been on, obviously big gigs. I think they always knew that this was I think MTV always knew that this was their chance of really breaking into the kind of territory that Game of Thrones has, in terms of getting people who normally go to film to actually watch TV because it's that good quality. And they've really pitched this at quite a high place. So I was very chuffed to be asked to audition for it. However, I did say no initially because I found out it was a 5-hour makeup. And as someone who's done a lot of prosthetics, one of the things about doing prosthetics is you have to tell people that you're in the show.
Right.
So it's a tricky one from a career point of view. If you get stuck doing prosthetics, sometimes people think that's all you do. However, having talked to a lot of people who'd read the books and were passionate, and when I worked out that it was a genre that I love myself, I went, yep, I'm down for that. It'll be good.
Awesome. That actually... go on.
I know. So a bit of both. A bit of them pursuing me and a bit of me going, oh, yeah, I think I could probably handle doing 5 hours of makeup for this. Yeah. It's a great role. I also hadn't realised that the Dagda Mor was such a big deal in the story in terms of he being the only, he's one of the few real evil people, and I love playing those characters. They're great fun.
Awesome. I was actually going to ask that. Have you been getting a complex that every time you go to be put on a set or something, they always want to shove these prosthetics all over you?
When you're as heinously ugly as me, I can sort of understand it.
I mean, we're chuckling away at that question myself. That was just cool. So, seeing as it's been 1 year ago since the Middle Earth saga in its whole entirety finished, how do you feel about the experience thinking back on it now? Do you miss it as much as some fans do?
Yeah, I think we all miss it. I think it was, all of us that worked, the 13 or 14 or 15 of us that were like the core cast, the dwarves and then Ian and Martin, we all emailed each other at Christmas time, actually.
Right.
Just to sort of say, hey, it's weird, it's December and we're not all catching up at a premiere somewhere. So a bit like it was back in Lord of the Rings days, actually, there is that kind of feeling of having left something truly amazing in our lives, not just our careers, but in our lives. We're all fans of the story, but to be the people that actually got to bring that to life was an incredible thing. I think all of us realise we'll never ever get to do anything quite as cool as that. Just in terms of the time we spent, the friendships we formed, but also what it meant to the fans. It's you get to do a lot of work that you do a lot of films that they're okay, but to do something that touches that many people, it's a privilege. And I know we say that and people go, oh yeah, but it really is. We are privileged to have been part of that world and continue to be part of that world. It's still going on, and it's still good. There'll be. I sort of I think one day Peter will put out his own extended Uber cut.
Yeah.
I'm actually running this year in March the 24th. I'm going to MC the Middle Earth Marathon at the Roxy Cinema in Miramar, which will be
cool.
all three of the Lord of the Rings and all three of the Hobbit films played back to back.
Oh, cool.
Over 24 hours.
Good God.
I'm not sure what they'll give me to keep me awake, but
plenty of coffee.
Yeah. Hopefully, I'll sit through all of them. I don't know.
Red Bull, gives you
sponsorship.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get yourself sponsored by Red Bull just all night.
Adventure film watching. Sit in my kayak.
Oh. That's one hell of a marathon, to be fair. All 6 films.
Yeah. They think they'll get it done in 24 hours, but if it was Peter's extended cut, that'd be one film.
True. Well, he's probably going to bring them all together eventually anyway, like you say, with all these Uber cuts that he does, and it'll just merge them all into one big 9-hour epic film.
Yeah, well, you know how they have this amazing behind-the-scenes stuff from The Hobbit. They shot a lot of that for The Lord of the Rings, but they shot it on film. So somewhere there's millions and millions and millions of feet of film waiting for some poor person to edit it all together.
Yeah. So we will expect in a few years' time then, when it starts to quieten down again, there will be a 10-hour epic with all the missing footage.
It's his private jet. He's coming to get me.
He's found you.
He has.
Okay, cool. Okay, so another one from The Hobbit is Adele, who's actually in New Zealand, and Poppy Drayton in France Twitter account also asked the same thing. They're asking, are you just a glutton for punishment when it comes to prosthetics? It's similar to what we just talked about. How do you maintain your stamina to cope up with makeup taking 5 hours a day, and then obviously presumably 10 hours filming plus?
It comes down to good nutrition and getting enough sleep, really. If you've got to get up at 1 a.m, the last thing you want to do is go out partying or drinking at night. And maybe back in the day I did a bit more of that, but more partying on Lord of the Rings. But having done so much, you realise that actually you have to really look after yourself. You have to make sure that you get sleep. And the people at my team of people that do the makeup, they're really good at making sure that they get enough moisturiser, and they're making sure that you're getting enough fluid. Make sure that you drink lots of water and have protein shakes during the day too. A lot of the time you can't eat traditional food types, just in terms of you take the paint off around your lips, and you have to be a bit careful with what you do, if you can take the teeth out or not. There was one character in Lord of the Rings I couldn't take the teeth out, so I had to drink a lot of fluid, and so stuff like that. But it's also just taking yourself to a headspace where you don't think about it. If you think about being uncomfortable, then that becomes the job, and that's no fun. So you have to find ways of limiting people. People go, "Oh, is it uncomfortable?" And you go, "No, it's fine." Because if you start going, "Oh, yes, I'm uncomfortable. It's really hot in here," the job is over. But it comes down to a kind of temperament. There are people that do prosthetics, and a lot of it. Doug Jones in the States does an awful lot, and he says the same thing. There's a mental place that you have to go to where you don't think about the fact that you're covered in goo and that you can't move properly and that it's really hot in there. You just have to be able to switch that off and have great temperature control. I can actually lower my breathing rate to actually lower my temperature if it gets too hot in there. So on the Hobbit we had these amazing cooling suits that had ice cold water would flow through the suit and keep us cool in between takes, and cool. I found actually that didn't do the job for me. But as soon as I plugged it, I'd overheat. So the body tries to regulate itself. So for me, it's just better to not have too many people fussing. Like I say to people, no, just I've got my bottle of water, just leave me alone. Because the more people around you fussing, the more you realise how uncomfortable you are. So it's good to have a good team who know you, and you can sort of have that out beforehand and say, this is what I require and this is what works for me. And luckily my people were amazing. They'd only come and do touch-ups if they really needed to, and the rest of the time they just left me to wander around. I don't like to sit. Right. If I sit down I lose energy, so I like to stand and talk to the crew and dance around and sing.
A singing Dagda Mor. That's
it brasses people up. It used to really annoy Martin. He'd go, for God's sake, can you just shut up?
I was going to say, it's actually that picture's just come out, hasn't there? It's been the one of you with Manu Bennett, and you're obviously full costume. There's Manu just giving you a kiss.
It was amazing being able to work with someone else. That was the day that we had lots of that dialogue, lots of the Druid dialogue, and it was really tricky. And he's a fun guy to be on set with.
I can imagine. Yeah, he was really good to talk to as well. He was another really intense. You can hear the passion in him as well. It was, he's one who did actually come across and said he felt sorry for you guys. And also for, especially in The Hobbit, and obviously yourself in Shannara, with the makeup, because he said, everyone else has their stuff in their faces, and it's like, you guys are just with a little straw stuck through your mask.
Yeah, it's nice to work with people that you've known in the industry and you've seen their work and you've worked with them before, It's nice to have a lot of our crew from The Hobbit, and also someone like him who's from The Hobbit as well. We have shared stories, but he's got a work ethic, just in terms of he takes it very seriously, Yeah. So we all want the great thing about this show is we all want it to do well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's so much fun to do. We want to come back and do it again.
Awesome. Well, hopefully it will. I mean, it's kicking up a good storm at the moment everywhere, so that'd be cool. Excellent. So Fiona Simpson also asks a Hobbit one. She wants to be involved in such amazing trilogies in The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Playing very different characters in both must have been amazing. The films took many months to film and the sets were amazing. Are there any other characters that you would have liked to have played?
Yeah, like as all people, I read the books as a kid. I wanted to be Aragorn. That for me, of all of the trilogies, actually, that part I think is the one that stands out to me the most, because he is a human who's humble. His humility shines right through to the point where he has to actually take the reins and be king, and it's more that it's forced upon him by circumstances rather than something that he wants for himself. And I think that we as people all want to believe that we could be that humble, that we could go through life and have that kind of humility, but also be willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of mankind. And Bilbo the same, he's willing to put his own life on the line to save a group of people who he doesn't really know that well.
Yeah.
So I think for me, those characters are the ones that stand out for me. We'd all like to play those larger-than-life characters who are carrying the world on their shoulders.
Definitely. They are, as you say, extremely good characters, and they accentuate, like you just said, they accentuate the best of humanity. What we should all strive to be. It would be a really lovely place if we did all strive to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the reason why those films do so well, is they touch that subconscious thing in all of us where we go, I'd like to believe that I could be that. That if push came to shove and the fate of the world was resting on my shoulders, that I would do the right thing. Because there are lots of great thing with Tolkien is he writes very well-rounded characters, but he writes a well-rounded story where you have the evil people aren't truly evil. There's good in them as well.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't start out, apart from Melkor and Sauron. I guess they're truly evil, and the Dagda Mor. I guess there are some people who have the purity of evil as well, but you have to have that purity of evil to have the purity of light. But in between, there's all these people who, like the rest of us, have foibles. You know, we're not perfect.
Yeah, definitely. It's just brilliant essays, lovely characters, lovely round. And again, I think Shannara Chronicles, it sort of brings that essence as well. It's very much so.
Yeah. Well, one of the great things about fantasy writing since Tolkien is they've all kind of kept the same sort of world in terms of fantasy. You know, in terms of they sort of stick to the rules of races, if you like.
Yeah.
Elves are kind of high and proud. Even in Shannara, they're high and proud, and it's kind of a similar thing to you get in a lot of fantasy writing. I think it's one of the reasons why it's a genre that I'm drawn to.
Oh, cool, definitely. I did laugh and found it amusing that John Rhys-Davies, the astounded, fantastic actor that he is, obviously plays Gimli in Lord of the Rings, the elf-hating dwarf. Now he's the king of the dwarfs.
Yeah. I think Legolas might have had something to do with that. He's undercover.
The dwarf spy. Yeah, no, that did make me tickle me when I saw that. I was like, oh, that's cracking.
Yeah.
I do love him, they're fantastic. Okay, next one is probably the last Hobbit sort of related one. I know we touched on this in part 1 of our interviews as well.
That's all good.
Fiji, or Figgy, has asked what it's like working with Christopher Lee. Now, I'm never going to tire of you talking about this because he's brilliant.
It was the most amazing thing, you know, having grown up on Hammer House Horrors and seeing a lot of his stuff on TV as a child and being scared, witless.
Yep.
By that. But just, he again was incredibly humble in terms of didn't want to really talk about his own achievements. He wanted to talk about the people that he'd worked with that inspired him and the things that inspired him. And I know that a lot of people hung around when he was in the makeup chair just to hear snippets of his stories. And you know, I was in a van with him and Brad Dourif one morning, and Brad was giving me a hard time about being in prosthetics, and Christopher said, just leave him alone. If you've never done prosthetics, you have no idea what he's going through. Yeah. And of course he'd done a lot himself, so we then swapped stories about what it was like being in prosthetics and what was the hardest job for him. I think he said the mummy was the worst one he ever did, just in terms of being stuck in prosthetic for ages. And but it was not blowing his own trumpet. Someone who's done more films than anyone in history didn't talk about it like it was any great achievement. He just said how lucky he'd been to actually work for so long. You know, and that's all those people who are larger than life in terms of how we view them. In some ways, the more they've done, the more humble they are. Mm-hmm. And one great thing about actors, especially from the UK, is they come from a tradition of feeling lucky to work.
Right.
It's a very class thing. It's like, oh, I'm blessed, I work in this industry, rather than, hey, here's my entourage.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, none of the people coming from the UK had an entourage or had any kind of experience of that. They are much more like we are in New Zealand, where it's a job that you do and you try and do well, because if you don't get another one. And he was always trying to help other people. He was always very, very good at sort of saying, are you okay? Do you need more from me? Do you want me to give you more? Do you want more anger here? What's going to help you? There was a day when my teeth came out and hit him in the... Did I tell you this last time?
I think you might have done, actually. It sounds familiar.
Yeah. So, and he was just laughing about it afterwards. He said, I've never seen that happen. Someone's teeth came out and hit me in the face. And I was so embarrassed, but he was very good about it. He was amazing, actually. And as I say, it was my first day on set, and you couldn't really get a bigger day just in terms of how it felt for me.
Yeah.
You kind of felt, coming from New Zealand and coming from a very small film industry, it kind of felt like, wow, this is as good as it gets.
Awesome. Yeah, Christopher Lee was just absolute legend. I think what you touched on as well is definitely the way, the humbleness of how it should be. Sorry, here's me talking as like, you know, IT project manager talking to some film star yourself. But, you know, very much so. It's like, I think there's a guy, Kirk Weasler, so I'll give a shout to him. He's a motivational speaker, and he's just forever ingrained in my memory. He walked into the room, and he said there's two ways you can walk into a room. You can walk into a room and walk in exactly like you said, hey, look at me, look who I am. And you know, everyone like focused their attention. And then he said the other way was just to walk in and walk up to each person, shake them by the hand, say, hi, how are you? How are you doing today? You know, and that way, and what you've just, that's always stuck with me, and it's really kind of good to hear that. That's that kind of mentality is worldwide, and it goes through like that. That's how you should be, I think. It's always focus yourself and help everyone else and empowerment.
Yeah, I think Peter and Fran and Philippa, when they cast their films, one of the things I've heard them say is we cast really good people that just happen to be really good actors.
Yeah.
And I think that's very true. If you have a look at their films, they cast people who have a lot of humanity because they're telling those stories. They're telling those big stories that need humanity. I mean, there are the egotists in Lord of the Rings, but they're not the characters that we love. They're the characters we love to hate.
Yeah.
So I think they got it right in that, where they cast people who are willing to embrace the characters and make something of them rather than show their celebrity on screen. Mm-hmm. And not dissing Hollywood, but I think a lot of Hollywood films have a lot of celebrity on screen who are going, hey, aren't I great?
Yeah.
Whereas we didn't really have those on those films. We had people that were willing to get in the trenches and get down and dirty and make the story palpable and exciting for the people watching it. And that all comes from the top, I think one of the reasons why people love working for Peter is because he just embraces that. He goes, well, I want you to help me, to help these people see a great story. It's not about, you, it's about us. So, yeah.
Definitely. I think you can tell those stories as well, and you can tell those types of films where you've just described the difference between something like Lord of the Rings and something like, I'm not going to name a film because I don't want to get sued.
You don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm starting out doing this. I don't want to get in trouble. I'll just a generic Hollywood blockbuster, perhaps, where the camera's focused on muscles, it's focused purely on the power of that one actor, whereas Lord of the Rings, it's the whole everything, the cinematography, that setting, everyone, all part of the whole story, and that's what's been told there, not just focusing on ego.
Well, the audience too, like Pete wants to make the camera the audience. He wants you to be part of the experience, and he's always said that the audience is the most important. It's a character as well, and he's quite right about that. The audience is a character. We are always mindful, he's always mindful of how this is going to affect people, how it's going to affect the audience, and if he's actually paying them lip service or he's paying them tribute, and I think he tries to pay them tribute. Not everyone's going to love the films, because that's just how it is. People are going to go, oh, I wish they'd done this or I wish they'd done that. But, one thing that I would love people to go away with, the idea is that Peter, he cares very deeply about his fan base. He cares very deeply about them having enjoyment from the films. He wants them to enjoy the films as much as he does. If he wasn't a filmmaker, he'd be a super geek. He won't mind me saying that, because I know that he's a fan of things himself, and he's really passionate about them. So he understands that passion that audience have. So he's not making a film to go, hey, wow, look at me. He's making a film so people go, wow, look at this.
Yeah,
that's the difference.
Oh, yeah.
And the people that he casts embrace that, but it comes down to him casting people with that personality trait, people who want to make the work good rather than make themselves look flash.
Oh, right.
Apart from yeah. I'm just a one-man guy. I don't care.
Yeah. I think Tarantino's, from what some people have spoken to me about it, Tarantino's that kind of director as well. Empowers everybody. Like, I think in the morning they used to come on set for Django Unchained, and they had the same sort of thing. They'd come on, everyone would be sat there, 12 hours into it. It's raining outside. They're all just like miserable, and he goes, "Why are we here?" And obviously everyone has to scream back, "'Cause we love film." That kind of, that's. You're right. Yeah. It comes from the top. It's any industry you're in. If you've got that kind of powerful, motivational, inspirational person at the top, you can't help but fall in line right across the way and believe in that spirit and believe in that beauty of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and the other thing is there's a lot of harsh critics out there, and in the UK people will tell you if they don't like something, they'll tell you.
Oh, yes.
There's a lot of responsibility, especially with that particular group of books. Mm-hmm. They are so loved. I mean, it's the second most read book after the Bible, and, not very many people read the Bible from cover to cover.
Yeah.
They certainly, there's a few people that probably read it every year, and that's their job. But, Lord of the Rings I reread on a yearly basis, and I can't say that I do that with the Bible. Not dishing the Bible, it's a great story. It's a great work of fiction. But there is that responsibility to get these stories right, and, it's a hard road, man. It's a hard road to please everybody. I know there's always going to be criticism, but we kind of feel like, because there's so many passionate fans out there, that we've done something right. That we've appeased a lot of people. There's always going to be the detractors, but I've not come across many. The other great thing about doing those conventions is people really do give back. You can see they're so overwhelmed to actually meet these people that brought these characters to life. It's sort of overwhelming for us sometimes. We sort of go, wow, we're just normal people. We get up in the morning, we put our pants on, or not.
Yeah. Too much info.
Depending what kind of day it is. I'm like a newsreader from here. I'm naked from the bottom down. But yeah, it's that thing of we're just normal people, but we also do understand that we've done something that has touched a lot of people. So we're quite chuffed about that. As a group, we get it. We get it that it's a big deal.
Cool. I was going to say I'll mention this anyway because it's not one of the questions, but it kind of fits in perfectly. It's the same with Shannara Chronicles. It's got a huge following for the novels, and there is a split. Obviously, where there's people who don't like it because they said obviously it's got to be to the book, and rather than the adaptation of it. I've read the book years ago, and I am absolutely loving the adaptation of it. I think it's a really fresh way of bringing it to the screen and bringing it to a whole new generation of people who. So you're always going to get sort of that little fringe of people who are same with the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. They're always the same. There's going to be a little fringe of people who are just going to, no matter what it's going to be, it's not going to be right for them. And
my comment to them would be, go make your own.
Yeah.
If you're that good at it, if you really know your stuff and you think you can, go make your own. I mean, that was a comment that came from a filmmaker years ago. He said, yeah, I'm not going to please everyone, but he said, my advice to you is if you really hate what I did, go make your own. It's easy to sit there on a couch going, oh, you should have done this and you should have done that, but bottom line is if you can't do it yourself, maybe don't be so harsh. I did read the books. It was a long time ago, and I think that it's great to bring something into a kind of, to update it. And to bring new people in. And it is a huge market out there that you've got to corner. And if you're making a TV show which has so much going for it, but it also has so many other shows that are competing for that space, you have to make it. You can't stick to the things that are in the book if it slows down the pace or it stops people from wanting to watch it. And I think actually the idea is to create a bigger fan base than just for the books. You create a fan base that then people go back and read the books because they're interested to see where it came from. And it's one of the great things about The Hobbit is I've had people say, I didn't read the books until I saw the film. Then I went back and read the book. And now I'm reading all of Tolkien's work. And you go, well, great. Getting people back to reading literature is, if that's what Shannara does, if it gets people to go back and read Terry's books and gets them into reading, I think that's a positive thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got to say I downloaded them again from my Kindle after I started watching it because I was like, it's been so long since I've read them. I want to read them again, and it's like that. It's perfect, absolutely perfect. And I was going to say something else, and I can't remember what it was now.
Sorry,
it's all right. It was something related to that, but no, never mind. It's gone. Okay. So the next one it wasn't important. It wasn't anything that anyone had asked me to ask you. So don't worry. It's just an off-the-fly type of thing from my head. So Fiji also asks, both of your sons, Sadwin and Riley, have an interest in the film industry and acting. Do you advise them to stay in New Zealand or go abroad, perhaps like to the US?
Yeah, look, it comes down to them really. One of the great things about the New Zealand industry at the moment is that we are kind of punching above our weight, and I think they're both very passionate about the stories that are coming out of this country. Riley's he's in a show at Bats in a little theatre, and he's just done a web series for some friends of his, and he's part of a group of people who are all second or third generation people in the industry. So they're all roughly the same age. They went to college together. They all had an interest in theatre and film, and they're kind of making their own stuff. So I think Riley especially, I think he's pretty committed to staying here and doing New Zealand-based stuff. Yeah. Up to a point, I know he wants to travel, but I don't think they have a lot of ambition to go to the States, for instance. I think we've done a very good job of bringing Hollywood to New Zealand and showing them a different way of making stuff and showing them that our crew work here. And I think it'd be silly to leave now. I think actually the industry here is as good as anywhere. I mean, obviously the money in the States is probably better, like the money that you get in Hollywood, but the competition, the pool of people trying to do it is immense.
Yeah, definitely.
You have to have an ambitious streak, but you also have to be quite resilient to survive in Hollywood. I would advise them to do a good body of work here before you go over there, because the first thing they say is, "What do you got to show me?" Yeah. And if you go to, unless you're one of those incredibly beautiful people who just bang, everybody wants you, you've got that amazing thing. It's very hard in Hollywood or to exist really. I've got a lot of friends who are there and they go every year, and their stories have not put me off, but they've sort of made me realise that we're very lucky here. You can have a good standard of living, you can have your base of friends, and you can have that support network, and you can also work on the occasional huge mega film, or you can work on lots of little things. And I think actually for their age group, New Zealand is the place to be at the moment. I think there's so many people of their age group who are making work for themselves. There's a lot of great directors in this country now too who are looking at young people going, where's our next group of young stars? So I think they'd be mad to leave, personally. But I haven't advised them on that, I think. They're 19 and 23 now, they're young men, so that's something they'll have to decide for themselves. If they come to me for advice, I'm happy to give it. But, I mean, Sidman's just about to start work on he's got a little part on a film called Finding the Black Widow, and so he starts tomorrow, Thursday, actually.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's the first thing he's done, proper film for a while, so it'll be interesting to hear what he thinks of that. And it's directed by Thomas Robbins, who played Deagle.
Right, okay.
And Lord of the Rings, he's a director over here, and he does a lot of stuff with young people. He's won an Emmy for a thing called Reservoir Hill, so Seven's in good company in terms of working with him. He's a very good guide for young actors, and yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. Who knows? They might both end up in Hollywood, and I'll
No, that's cool. I think you're totally right as well. There's, I think, with the difference in technologies that have come along and the ability to be able to travel so much, so that places like New Zealand feature so heavily in nearly everything you're watching nowadays. I mean, look, Shannara is New Zealand. The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings is New Zealand. It's just a huge advert to say, this is a huge, big industry. It's got the locations, everything there, everything in one spot. The actors are all in one place. I think
the government also have realised that it's a proper business model now. It's not just something that we do occasionally. It's something that is kind of we need to have a consistent kind of government input to keep it rolling. I think they realise that the tourism that comes off the back of it is a big part of the industry here, but also the fact that it employs so many people. It's become quite a big thing.
Awesome, definitely. Well, hopefully it'll get even bigger.
I think it will.
Excellent. I say the UK is kind of like that as well. I mean, the UK's always had the film industry and been lucky there, but I think it's starting to come back a lot more as well. And I'm quite proud to say I live 3 hours away from the woods which were used in The Force Awakens, as well as Lord of the Rings. I believe some of the scenes were filmed. No, not all of them. There's not Lord of the Rings. Where was it? I did hear something about that. I know most of it. I know all of it's in New Zealand. I did hear somewhere it was in South Wales. Can't remember. No. I'm talking to Force Awakens. It's Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. Oh no, Chris, you just admitted you are not the person you thought you were. Yeah, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi. See, I'm getting mixed up talking to you. That's why. Yeah. So they're all filmed quite local to me, and it's lovely to see sort of everywhere else outside Hollywood. I know, not knocking Hollywood either, but it's lovely to see all these other places booming now with the film industry and being able to support and being able to produce such wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. I shall move on to Tammy Crosby, who is the Jed Brophy fan page,
That's
who
right,
I also believe you know.
Yeah, I do.
She's asked, which do you prefer to be in? Between a full body prosthetic like Sharku or the Dagda Mor, or a heavy costume like Nori's?
Oh Lord! I mean, I'd prefer not to be in any of them. It'd be great if we could all just act naked. But
there are films like that, but they're
each one of those things has its challenges, and it's. I mean, there are similarities in terms of getting hot, as I said before, and there are similarities in terms of the amount of time it takes to get into that stuff, but. I have, luckily, in this country anyway, done a few films where I just get to be me. I mean, my biggest passion is being me. I do a lot of theatre, and, the less clobber you have to put on to create a character, the better in some ways. Having said that, the challenge of trying to create a character through all that stuff is a real challenge, and if you can do it, like the Dagda Mor, I love the fact that he has that kind of effect on people, and someone has to do it, and if it comes down to me having a job or not having a job, by being the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy every time. It was great being Nori because it was something that I'd grown up with that story. So it was great to actually be able to actualise something that came from my youth as well. the Dagda Mor, I think he's one of the favourite characters I've played because of the challenge of having to speak a completely made-up language.
Yeah.
David Pedersen, who wrote it, amazing guy, but that is a real challenge in itself. And I think if you talk to any actor, the only way that you get better at your job is by being challenged. It's by being challenged to get through something that's difficult for you or isn't easy. And I've been very lucky that I've had a number of those challenges. And I think, it makes you it makes you a better actor, but it also makes you appreciate the people around that are there to help you. And like I say, all of that stuff, getting dressed up as Nori, getting made up as Sharku, and getting made up as the Dagda Mor, there's a huge team of people that you watching the show don't see.
Yeah.
One of the great things that has happened in the industry is the behind-the-scenes stuff that people are now doing has become almost as big as the project itself. And I'm chuffed because, Shay and his team have to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning as well to make me up, and they have to be there all day, and then they have to take the makeup off at the end of the day, and the same with the wardrobe people. And so for me, it's great to be part of a team effort. You do have this team of people, and you become quite good friends with them, and you do rely on them, and they rely on you. But the biggest thing is when those people watch the first episode and ring me up and go, "Wow, man, thank you. You made our prosthetics look so good. You made our costume amazing. Thank you for that." Because it's a team effort. I'm really chuffed that my team is getting kudos from it too. SLS makeup. Hopefully it'll lead to something else for them. And for me, if I feel like I've done them good service, that's kind of enough. But then to have the fans also like what I do, that's even better. Because there's no point in doing something in a vacuum. There's no point in being great as a Dagda Mor and having it sit in a vault somewhere and never see it.
Yeah, true, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I was quite nervous before the first couple of episodes. Are people going to like this character, or are they just going to think it's shh? There is always that. Yeah, I mean, you can get great feedback from the director and the producer, and you can go, well, yeah, I mean, they're paid to say that in the service team. But for the fans to love it, and for the fans to be so taken by it, and for the fans to be truly scared by it or whatever, that's when you know you've done the job. But to try and differentiate between which was the best, you can't really do that. They're all good in their own way. Even the bad jobs I've done, I've got something from it.
Awesome. I was going to say what you said there as well does touch, I think, when you are playing a character in a prosthetics as heavily as the Dagda Mor or as Nori or as like Dwayne or any of those guys all do that. It's to get that character across. It must take for me, from someone who's a fan watching, I would admire that in some respects a lot more because you have all that makeup. You can't use your normal facial expressions. You can't use gestures that everybody else will be able to do because you're trapped within that suit. So to actually portray that and make people believe, because I tell you something, the Dagda Mor is pretty damn scary when you see him on screen.
And you wait. I mean, he gets a lot scarier. Without giving anything away, it gets pretty dark.
Awesome, can't wait. Brilliant. Tammy also asks if you could swap lives with someone for a day, who would you like to be?
Cate Blanchett. I just think she's one of the very few people I've ever been starstruck by. And
right.
She's not just an amazing actress. She's also an amazing human being, and again, got this amazing humility. But she gets the best roles, man. She's earned it. She's a fantastic performer. But I look at the films that she's done, and I mean, I'm a man, and a lot of guys would go, "Oh, you would swap with a man for a day." It's like, well, no, I am a man. I do that for a living. Yeah. But to be a woman, to be an actress, and to sort of inhabit some of her roles, I think that would be fantastic. She's also, she also loves the theatre. Her and her husband ran the Sydney Theatre Company, and I just think to swap for a day and get the kind of free dresses and free gear that she gets, because I don't get free suits, not here in this country. But yeah, she has some amazing fashion. I've played a woman a couple of times, and yeah, they have the best clothes, man. It's just guys are boring. Give them a suit, give them a tie, generic. Women, you have to get you're competing on the red carpet. They have to be flash. They have to be amazing. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people will go, "What, Cate Blanchett for a day?" But yeah, wow, come on, she has an amazing life. I think it'd be cool.
Awesome. Well, I can vouch. I think I played a pantomime dame at uni once, and also dressed as Frankenfurter for a Rocky Horror Picture Night. So yeah, the variation of women's clothing compared to blokes. I'm not saying that I'll do it now, but it's you're right. Yeah. They seem to have a lot more fun.
They just do. They have more accessories. Anyway,
Yeah, unfortunately, for that one Rocky Horror Night, that was a bit. We went to watch it, so we'd all dressed up. I was in a size 10, so I was pretty impressed at age 19 in a size 10. Ladies, listen, not anymore, sadly. But they cancelled it as well, so we had to sit in the bar all night dressed up in stockings and suspenders.
Just a normal night out in Wales, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we just need. No, I'm not going to say.
That was terrible. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's true. I live here. I can.
Too much information.
All right, Amber is asking. Amber Surratt, this is what's by far the best part about being on this show on Shannara? What is the
working with the people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the best part about our job is going to work with a great group of people every day. You wouldn't do it otherwise, and the passion that everyone showed for actually bringing this story to life.
Yeah. One
of the great things is a lot of young actors who are kind of starting out in their burgeoning industry. You know, they're about to go ballistic, and this is a great vehicle for them to be seen by a wider audience, and it will lead to a lot of parts. That for me is fantastic. Seeing a great group of young actors who are on the verge of going ballistic. It's a great thing to be around. You can sort of see the excitement, but you know yourself, having been on some big gigs and seen what it's done for people's careers, you know that this is the launching pad for them to be, you know, very well known, and it makes a huge amount of difference if you're in something good that people want in terms of being able to be cast and stuff. Producers are always looking for people who have a fan base, or people who are going to touch people, or people who you know, that people want to watch. It makes a big difference in terms of being able to get a job. And I think the excitement, the palpable excitement on set from the producers, the directors, and the cast, knowing, having watched rushes, that this was going to be something a bit special, that's the best thing. You go to work every day on something that you know no one's going to see. That can be kind of depressing. You know, we've all done those jobs where you watch the rushes and you go, no one's going to want to watch this.
Yeah.
And the next day you have to go to work and go, hey, here we all are. Woohoo! Well, you know, it's actually, you know, so to be a part of something that has a kind of a built-in fan base and that people have been waiting for, but also has the highest production values. You know, the special effects on this, and as I say, the costuming and the props department and all those people, they've all come from Lord of the Rings, from Xena and Hercules. They've kind of come to a point in the industry where they know what they're doing, and so they're working at the very highest level. And when you're on a production like that, it's a dream. That's the kind of gigs that you want to do. And I talked about this with my agent, actually. I'm so pleased that I actually finally said, yes, this is something that I want to do, you know. I mean, I look back on it going, why was I so... It was just the 5 hours. It was just not my beauty standard, you know. The older you get, the less you want to get up. But having said that, I'll do it all over again. And hopefully, if the powers that be, we will get to do it again.
Fantastic, yeah, definitely, hopefully. Cool. So Lady Juliet and Serena Volpe both ask the same question, and that's what's the most challenging part of playing the Dagda Mor?
I'd say, for me, it wasn't so much the 5-hour makeup, it was learning that new language. It was really, really tricky. And when the good part about it is only I and the writer who wrote the language probably know when I got it wrong. You know, and I've had a couple of conversations on Twitter with him about sort of apologising for the times when I didn't. He seems to think I do it quite well, but it is that thing. Andrew and I have talked about this. It's really, really difficult because you've got nothing. If you get lost, you've got nothing to hook it on. Yeah. You know, it's because you sort of have to rote learn it in a way. Didn't have the time to know exactly what I was saying. There are some words that that I'm clear about what I'm saying when I'm talking about the princess, or I'm talking about another druid, or I'm talking about the four lands. But there's a lot of stuff in the middle there where I'm just you're just thinking, did I get that right? Jeez, I hope and that's a terrible place to be, because then you're not acting. Yeah. So you have to know it well enough that you can actually also then perform. So that was the big challenge for me, was knowing it well enough that I could then actually have a grasp of what I was saying and get the right intention and the right amount of menace into it. So it's a tricky one. That I've never had. I'm not great with languages. I'm good with accents. I'm not great with languages. I got 8 in Latin, the lowest mark ever recorded in School C in this country for Latin. It was scaled up from 4. I think I got my name right or something. So not great at languages. So for me, that's a big challenge. I mean, I'd have to constantly go back and refer to it. And Mona will tell you the same story, man. There were just days where we would just look at each other going, oh. As soon as the camera rolls, you go, oh, it's all gone. I had this huge ended up coming to this huge army I had to address in the show Shannara, and first 2 takes, I rocked up there and nothing. Sorry, cut, go back. And then once it came, it was brilliant. But just those first 2 takes, and I know the person standing next to me, Dan was kind of going, "Oh no, it's going to be a long night." Don't want to do that to people, Not when there's a whole army of extras there. You don't want to do that. So that's been the biggest challenge.
All right, awesome, cool. It's lovely to hear that. You do get those kind of moments where you do freeze as well. You're just like everyone else.
Doesn't matter how good you are. You always have. I mean, Ian McKellen says that too. There are just times when you're so concentrating on something else that suddenly you go, "What am I saying?" Mm-hmm. It happens to everyone. I guarantee it.
Yeah, sadly I find that quite often during the day, every day. I try.
You're a parent though, eh?
Oh, that's very true, yes. Yeah, so it's understandable.
Someone is sucking your brain out, that's what's happening.
That sounds about right.
I can only put sentences together now that my kids have grown up and left.
Exactly, yeah. All the imagination stories that you can't think normally because you've got to go into their imagination.
And then you find yourself doing it at the bank.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I've got loads of money.
Yeah. Cool. That actually answered one of the questions. I'll just shout out as well. Jessica Burgos had asked, do you provide the voice of the Dagda Mor? So that's obviously answered that because you do.
Yep.
Which was your biggest challenge. Cool. So Leah, who is Carlisi on Twitter, has asked, now that you finally worked on both fantasy stories in Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit and Shannara, in what ways do they differ from each other?
I think Shannara differs in that it's set post-apocalyptic, so the humans it's sort of set but after our time, whereas Lord of the Rings is kind of set back in what we call the Middle Ages. Yeah. Not that Middle Earth is the world that we live in. It's this kind of other place, but it does have that harking back to pre-motor car, pre-computer, pre all of that stuff. Whereas Shannara Chronicles are post. The humans have already had science, have had magic. And they've bugged it up, basically. And so now we're left with a world where people are having to reinvent the wheel. And they have some kind of idea of what it used to look like or what it should be like, but they also understand that power corrupts. Whereas Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are set when we're finding out that power corrupts. Whereas this is kind of post that. We're looking back on the past and going, oh, man, the mistakes of the past, we must never let that happen again. Yeah. And people have forgotten. They've forgotten that evil really, truly does exist. And, the Elven King, for whatever reason, has not kept his followers up to date with the history of what's happened. And it takes Alanon coming back going, dude, remember what happened? Why aren't you ready for this? Remember what happened last time? It's going to happen again. And people are going, no, that's just an old story.
Yeah.
So, that's the main difference is working on something that has a kind of a modern. If you look at the costuming, it's quite modern. It's quite beautiful costumes that the elves wear. You can wear that stuff into a nightclub and people go, dude.
Yeah, I think Poppy did say to me as well. She goes, if she could have the leathers, she'd still be wearing them now.
Absolutely, and so that's the main thing. There is a kind of a combination of the weapons having a kind of a modern twist to them, but it still is an ancient race of people. That's the similarity. Is there is this kind of non-human race of people who are in charge of things. Same in Tolkien. The elves they're the ones that really are the reason that Middle Earth exists in the first place. A place for them to hang out and play. So that's the main difference.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, as I can say, I did have to actually explain to someone because there's in Shannara, I think it's episode 1 or 2. They go to the little cottage, and where I can't remember the character's name now. That's embarrassing.
Oh, Priya.
Yeah, they find him.
Yeah,
he's hiding away. He's locked away, but there's an old abandoned car outside. So I had to try and explain to someone it's not like it's not Lord of the Rings, it's not a fantasy world. It's actually a post-apocalyptic world that's completely forgotten its histories, and it's gone back to the grassroots and started all over again.
Yeah, magic doesn't exist anymore, but it does.
Cool. Okay, so Nicola Canfora from Italy, I believe he is. He's asked how difficult it is to play a role with a mask. So again, we kind of touched on that already, but
you have to kind of act a bit bigger. to get through that. I mean, you have to be able to move your face quite a lot to get the great thing about the face pieces is 9 different pieces, so it has a certain amount of flexibility on the face, and but it is difficult. You're constrained because you've got lenses in, so it's not your real eyes, and that does something to not showing through the emotions quite so much. The iris contracting and expanding tells you a lot about what people are feeling. So you don't have that, so you have to have you have to do other things. You have to kind of work a bit harder to make the menace come through. One of the great things is all the directors wanted a certain amount of subtlety. They didn't just want big stuff. They wanted actually it to come down and be quite small at times. But the golden rule, whether you have a mask on or whatever, if you think it, it shows. If you show it, it doesn't. So the idea is to always be in the moment and always be thinking like the character, and then it comes through. So if you're thinking, I've got to teach you a lesson, and I'm going to it's really quietly so that you're really listening, then that comes through. So it's the same rules. It's just that you do actually have to work a bit harder to get some things to happen.
All right, cool, awesome. Okay. Kate Holmes, she was on Facebook, asks, what was your typical day like filming Shannara?
Long. The people I feel most sorry for is the people that had to come to the hotel and pick me up. They'd be like, literally, they had 3 or 4 hours sleep. So
lovely.
Typically it started early, and it would start by me getting into my undergarments that went under the costume, because you have to have those on first, which were kind of like skins that covered the whole body. One of the things for that is if any of the paint stripped down off the face, you didn't want your own clothes on. And then it was just sort of getting my hair completely gelled down, a thing called gaff quat, which is like a glue. It's like a glue that goes through your hair, and it kind of, because I refused to shave my head for this. I was like, no, I might get auditions for other parts, and unless it's for a bald guy, I'm going to get them. So I was a bit resistant. They did want me to shave my head. I was like, I'm not going to do it. Right. I know that they have this stuff to do it. So the gaff quat, and then slowly the pieces would go on. So 5 hours later, I'd have the face on it would be painted up. Then I'd go to wardrobe. Then I'd get some breakfast, and then we'd go and block out the scenes, and then we'd shoot stuff and do a 12-hour day on top of that. So a 12-hour shooting day on top of my 5 hours. So I'd be doing 17 to 19-hour days.
Good God.
So that was a typical day. And then dropping into bed. And only once did I work 2 days in a row. It's too expensive for them to have me work those kind of hours, because every hour, what they call broken turnaround, if I don't get my 8 hours sleep, they have to pay me for that. So it was only towards the end of the shoot where they kind of went, oh, we need you back tomorrow. It's 10 o'clock now, we need you back at 1. I'm like, oh well. Go home, lie down for an hour, get up again. So that was the thing, was just making sure that I had if I had a couple of heavy days coming up, just to make sure that the hardest thing is sleeping through the day. I don't really do that very well, but just having to make myself. Telling the hotel staff, don't knock on my door, don't ask to clean the room, I'll be asleep and I'll get angry.
And you don't want to see me angry.
So it was, they were long days. So that, and that was every day. They were long days every day. But, having said that, you do get paid overtime. It's not, they compensate you for the hours that you don't get to sleep, so it was worth it.
That's all right. That's not too bad then.
No, it's not.
Yeah. I think Manu said as well at one point, when you talked about the cost of, obviously, of putting you on set, I think he mentioned once, it was about $5,000 for every time someone just had, someone in costume had to go for a pee. So because you've just cost him $5,000 just for going for a whiz, with his words.
Absolutely. I think that's what people forget about the cost of filming is all of those crew members that are on there are on an hourly rate. So, if you waste a couple of hours, you're wasting not just the time of the person wasting the time, but there's all those other people, all the people in the office, all the people in LA waiting to see rushes. All of that stuff costs money, It's a cost on top of a cost on. It's a very expensive business, making films or making good television.
I can imagine. Okay, last question, a bit of a light-hearted one. This is from Gemma. She's asked, have you ever forgotten that you're wearing your own get-up and makeup and you've scared yourself when walking past a mirror, or scared any other cast member?
Definitely scared other people. Back in the day working on rings, I came up behind a guy with the horse department and just said, "Get out of the way, ugly human." And he turned around, whoa! I thought he was going to have a heart attack. Absolutely freaked out. And I do know that my youngest son, Severin, he was about 4. I think he came on set one day and I was dressed up as one of my characters and scared the living daylights out of him. And then,
Oh, bless.
so they had to go, so it's Dad, take my teeth out and take the eyes out and show it was me.
Yeah.
But after that, he wasn't scared of anything. He'd come on set and people would try and scare me and he'd go, I know that's a rubber costume. That's not scary. But yeah, there was one day I was off watching Poppy and Ivana do a scene, and I walked out and this young woman was talking to another woman, and I just went, hey, walked past and oh my God, it's so ugly. So ugly. And then one of them said this funny thing. She said, oh, you extras don't realise how famous you're going to be. And I just was like, that's pretty funny. Josie did the character, but I was just like, oh, yeah, oh, thanks for that.
Cool. I was going to say, were you actually in your prosthetics when she said that? I'm just going back to what you said at the beginning.
That's the thing is, people don't know me out of prosthetics. That's when they get freaked out. They go, there's a weird guy just hanging around the set. Just...
Who the hell is he? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, Callum.
Back on Braindead for Peter Jackson back in the day, there was a day where I had to go to a film industry party and we'd only just finished filming, and the makeup artist gave me ethyl alcohol and some Mirrostate and some pads to take home and take my own makeup off, and I got stopped by a checkpoint.
Right.
So I was dressed up as a zombie, had all this skin flaking off my face, and they thought I'd been in a terrible accident and wanted to take me off to the hospital, and I sort of peeled it off and freaked them all out. So yeah, that's the only time I've ever done it in public and made a nuisance of myself.
Oh, that would be fun to see. Braindead was a classic film.
Still is, yeah.
Oh, it still is, yeah.
It stands the test of time, actually.
It does indeed. Okay. Last one from Gemma, and the last one for the night is, if you could have another character from a TV show or movie to be one of your demons, who would you choose?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. There are so many good demons out there. I don't really know. I can't answer that, Gemma. That's a question that I have to spend a bit more time in my head actually thinking about. I quite like the characters from Guardians of the Galaxy. There's some pretty cool characters in there, I have to say. Not demons, but just characters, prosthetic characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know a lot of other demons from other TV shows, to be honest with you. But that's terrible. I should know who all of them are, but I don't.
Called you out now.
I have, yeah. I'm going to have to go and rewatch them all and try and find them.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I thought that Angel was a great program back in the day. I thought there was some incredibly good prosthetics in that, and some demon characters.
Well, it was, especially for the time it was out as well.
Yeah, really, really good. Yeah, I tell you what, I'm enjoying watching in terms of sort of slightly demonic characters, and that's iZombie, which is a TV show shot in Canada, and a friend of mine, Rose MacGyver, plays the lead in it, and it's got some interesting makeup effects in there, and I really like what they've done with the zombies. It's great, kind of albino looking.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. It's actually on my watch list. I've got a little watch list. So many shows out now, it's just unbelievable. So I'm just,
Oh, too many, really, eh?
You can't have too many shows.
No, you can't, no.
But obviously I'm prioritising, because I'm prioritising Shannara.
Yeah. Darth Vader, I guess. Darth Vader's kind of demonic.
Yep, he is.
Yeah, that'd be fun to play. I have asthma.
Then as Yoda, I could speak.
Very good.
That's made me cough now. Yeah, no, that's my little Yoda voice, yeah. Okay. No, that'd be cool. So, yeah, there you go, Gemma. Darth Vader.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, that brings us to the end of the interview and the end of the questions being sent in. So thank you very much once again, Jed.
You're very welcome. It's been fun.
Thanks once again, Jed Brophy, for all your support and for taking the time to talk to me once again and to answer everybody's questions. I hope all my listeners, the ones who've got questions asked, are satisfied and happy with those answers. Absolutely fascinating stories once again from Jed. Always a pleasure, every single time. So, that's me all wrapped up for today. Once again, you can find Ramblings of a Hellblazer on iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. And stay tuned for later in this week when I talk to the one, the only Rover, Ivana Beccaro. Thank you very much. Good night.